The sun had barely risen over the wind-bitten plateau of Camp Vireo, a NATO joint training facility hidden in the Caucasus Mountains, a place where the elite sharpened their edges, and where the weak were chewed up, spat out, and forgotten. Drills thundered. Boots hit gravel. Fresh recruits from 11 nations lined the yard like anxious dominoes. And then she walked in, thin, pale, wearing a wrinkled jacket that had clearly seen better decades. Her name tag read, R. Vale. No rank, no insignia, no country flag. The laughter came fast. Who let Grandma in? Is that logistics, or just lost? Jesus, she looks like she hasn't seen sun in years. One of the American sergeants, Bennett, built like a refrigerator and twice as loud, snorted, stepping up to her. You here for orientation, sweetheart? Or did you get off at the wrong stop? Vale said nothing. She just looked at him. Not with fear, not even contempt, but with something colder. Disinterest. That only made it worse. You don't talk, huh? Bennett sneered. Figures. Probably admin, or janitorial support. Better stay out of the way once the real training starts. More chuckles. She adjusted the strap of her small pack. Didn't blink. Didn't flinch. It was infuriating. The trainees were introduced to their rotating instructors, some real monsters in human form. Among them, Captain Elena Rourke, ex-British SAS, who sized everyone up like she was choosing who to throw out of a helicopter first. When she reached Vale, she frowned. You weren't on my list. Silence. Rourke turned to her aide. Where's her file? There wasn't one. Just a courier-delivered envelope, sealed in red. Eyes watched as the aide opened it, then turned visibly pale. Rourke snatched it from his hands, skimmed 2 lines, then looked back at Vale. Expression unreadable. You're in Squad Echo. Move. That was it. No explanation. No further orders. Everyone else noticed. She gets in without files. What kind of crap is that? She's definitely someone's mistake, and so began her time in Squad Echo, the unit where all the unfit, unwanted, and undecided were dumped. The squad for dropouts and screw-ups. Week 1. Hell begins. Obstacle courses, firearms drills, strategic planning. Vale failed everything. Or so it seemed. She ran slower than the others. Shot worse. Never volunteered for leadership drills. She didn't eat with the others. Didn't sleep well either. Always awake by 3 a.m., staring at the wall, eyes wide. Even her bunkmate, a French corporal named Leclerc, grew frustrated. You're a ghost, Vale. What are you even doing here? No answer. One day, during combat simulation, Vale tripped during a fake breach. Bennett, of course, was watching from the side. Put her in a kitchen, not a kill zone, he barked. Before she gets someone hurt. No one defended her. Even Captain Rourke said nothing. Day 11, the knife drill. A simple test. Disarm an attacker using rubber blades. Each trainee had 30 seconds. Bennett volunteered to test Vale himself. It wasn't required, but no one stopped him. She stood in the center mat, shoulders relaxed, expression blank. Don't blink, sweetheart, he said, cracking his neck. Would hate to break that pretty porcelain face of yours. The whistle blew. He charged, and for a split second, Vale moved. A flicker, a blur, then nothing. Everyone blinked. She was behind him. He was on his knees, choking. His rubber blade, gone. Her blade? Pressed lightly against the base of his neck. 1 breath away from his carotid artery. 30 seconds hadn't even passed. She stepped back. Dropped the blade. Walked off the mat. Still no word. Rourke, watching from the upper rail, muttered under her breath. Oh, that wasn't in the manual. But that display? It didn't earn her applause. It earned suspicion. Whispers started circulating in the mess hall. That wasn't just reflex, that was trained. You saw how she moved, like she's done it, for real. But where's her file? Why no records? A few began digging. What they found? Nothing. No enlistment history, no service background, no documented combat experience. Just an untraceable name and a sealed envelope. Day 15, tactical map exercise. The simulation was simple. Lead a squad through hostile terrain using only paper maps and aerial recon. Squad Echo was failing. They got lost 3 times, ambushed twice in simulation. Vale stayed quiet the entire time, until she abruptly reached over and redrew the entire path. Every hill, route, and blind spot, mapped in less than a minute. "What the hell is this?" Leclerc snapped. Vale finally spoke. Soft, barely above a whisper. "That's where the drones are. That's where they're not looking." Leclerc scoffed until the instructors ran the sim again. This time, Echo finished with 0 casualties and 2 extractions. Even the systems couldn't believe it. How'd she know? She didn't even look at the computer. Who memorizes drone blind zones? Someone whispered. She's not a recruit. She's a spook. But the humiliation didn't stop. If anything, it deepened. Rourke called her out the next morning. "What are you, Vale? Not SAS, not CIA, not NATO either. You're a damn puzzle. And this isn't the place for puzzles. It's for killers." Vale said nothing. Rourke stepped closer. "We don't trust shadows here. So unless you show me something that matters, something real, you're out. And this time..." Vale's lips parted. Just 5 words. "I've already been out there." And then silence. She returned to her bunk, took off her jacket, and for the first time, they saw them. The scars, burns, patches of skin like cracked marble, signs of stitches layered over bullet wounds, and something worse. Not fresh, not recent. Old, survived, healed, endured. Leclerc backed away, whispering to herself. No one survives wounds like that. Not without disappearing. That night, the recruits lay awake. Something had shifted. Not trust, not yet, but a presence, a realization. Whoever Vale was, she wasn't nobody. And tomorrow, they'd learn that the quietest blade cuts the deepest. Snow began to fall on Camp Vireo. The light flakes masked the tension thickening beneath the surface, especially in Squad Echo. Since the knife drill and tactical redraw, whispers about Vale had shifted tone. She was no longer the joke. She was the unknown. And in the military, the unknown is always dangerous. Even Captain Rourke had stopped assigning her standard drills. Instead, Vale was summoned for one-on-one evaluations. Behind locked doors, with observers from unnamed divisions, and the tests were strange. Test 1, simulated hostage extraction. 4 instructors acted as captives, 4 as guards. Vale had 10 minutes to locate, plan, breach, and extract, all without alerting the perimeter team. She completed it in 5. No alarms, no injuries. When asked how she'd known the guard rotation blind spot, Vale shrugged. "You left a print on the southern latch. Your boots drag at the toe. You've got a limp. That means you lean when turning left. So you always turn clockwise. That gives me 6 seconds on every second pass." The room fell silent. One evaluator, British intelligence by accent, jotted notes furiously. Another simply muttered, "Pattern recognition, off the scale." Test 2, stress interrogation. She was locked in a simulated detainment room for 8 hours. Sleep-deprived, no food, flashlights in her face, classified documents in front of her. Standard candidates usually cracked by hour 3. Some even faked seizures just to get out. "Vale?" She stared straight ahead. Didn't flinch. Didn't speak. Not once. At hour 6, one interrogator snapped. "You're wasting our time. Say something." She leaned forward, calm. "You blink exactly 23 times per minute. That means you're anxious, not angry. Your partner shifts his weight left. Old knee injury, probably from a rugby accident. This chair was drilled into the floor an inch off-center, which means you moved it. That means you didn't build this room. So, who's really running the test?" The team ended the drill. Immediately. One whispered to the commander outside, "Sir, she's not just reading behavior, she's reading the room." Meanwhile, back in Squad Echo, something had changed. Vale still said little, still moved like fog. But her presence now had gravity. People watched her. Not out of mockery, out of calculation. During marksmanship class, she stood at the range without ammo. Just air. One by one, the squad fired live rounds. "Vale?" She stood behind them, silently adjusting their stances. "Loosen your shoulder. Your left eye is dominant. Breathe out halfway, then hold." By the end of the hour, the entire squad had improved their accuracy by nearly 20%. Even Bennett obeyed, without a word of protest. Then came the turning point. The live drill, codename Iron Veil, a 4-squad simulation in the nearby forest. 12-hour capture the flag exercise. Live paint rounds, tactical gear, night vision, zero communication with command until extraction. Each squad was assigned one objective: find and capture a heavily defended bunker with a faux WMD inside. Echo Squad was expected to fail. They always did. But this time, Vale raised her hand. "First time ever." Rourke raised an eyebrow. "You have something to say?" She nodded. "Let me lead." You could hear the oxygen leave the tent. Leclerc stared. Bennett actually laughed. "You want to lead, Echo? You couldn't even finish the first assault course without—" Vale turned slowly. "Bennett, last week you used your night vision backwards for 3 minutes. You shot a friendly and never even noticed." Laughter crushed. Even Rourke was caught off guard. "Fine," she said. "You lead. God help you if you botch this." Operation Iron Veil began at 2100 hours. Vale didn't speak for the first hour. Just mapped, walked, listened. The squad followed her through a forest path no GPS had marked. This wasn't on the briefing. Leclerc whispered. Vale glanced upward. "The satellites aren't ours. NATO leased them. They missed the blind gully." How did she know? No one asked. At 2300 hours, they encountered Squad Alpha, already pinned by mock snipers. Vale motioned for Echo to halt. Then she vanished. Vanished! 5 minutes passed, 10. Suddenly, the snipers went silent. Alpha moved forward. Vale emerged from the tree line, covered in mud. She handed Rourke a small drone controller. They were using unauthorized recon. "I disabled it." "How?" Rourke asked. "Let's just say it didn't survive the mudslide." By 0100 hours, Echo Squad reached the outer perimeter of the target bunker. Mines, infrared tripwires, 2 roving drones. Standard procedure would have been to engage. "Vale?" She waited, then moved forward alone. Disappeared behind a ridge. 10 minutes later, the bunker exploded in blinding white light. But it wasn't real. It was an illusion. Thermal flashbangs triggered in perfect sync to simulate a breach. Seconds later, Vale's voice crackled through the headset. "Target neutralized. All guards incapacitated. Package recovered. Recommend extraction." Squad Echo stared at each other. She took it alone? She didn't even use us. What the hell is she? Rourke, who had been watching from a command drone, whispered, "She's not from here. She's from somewhere much darker." Back at camp, word spread like wildfire. An analyst from NATO Intel pulled Rourke aside. "We ran facial scans. We found nothing. No digital trail, no military service. One redacted file under something called Project Glassline, clearance level 9. Rourke froze. There is no level 9. Exactly. Later that week, Vale returned to the range, alone. She adjusted her jacket sleeve, revealing the faintest tattoo, 3 parallel lines inside a triangle. One soldier spotted it and paled. He leaned to Leclerc. That's the sigil for Black Branch, the ghost unit, the ones they disavow. I thought that was a myth. If she's from that unit, she doesn't just survive war. He swallowed. She writes it. But Vale, she never confirmed it, never claimed glory, never asked for credit. She simply trained, helped, watched, and Squad Echo slowly began to follow. Not because she demanded it, but because they knew she could break every one of them, but chose to make them stronger instead. 3 weeks had passed. Camp Vireo had changed. Squad Echo, once the punching bag of the training ground, had become silent lightning, quick, precise, and unnerving. Not loud, not proud, just deadly efficient. Every squad began asking, "Who trained you like this?" Echo had no answer, because the answer didn't belong in any report. It wore a ghost's name, R. Vale. Vale still never spoke more than needed, still never gave direct orders. But the squad listened anyway. She taught them without ego, corrected without criticism. And when she stepped onto the mat or into the simulation, even the instructors stopped talking. Rumors turned into respect, then into reverence. She wasn't just skilled, she was impossible. And then one cold afternoon, they found out why. Day 26, Winter Patrol Simulation. The schedule was routine. Joint NATO patrol with Polish and Albanian trainees through a frozen ravine north of Camp Vireo. No weapons, no threats, just endurance and coordination. Squad Echo joined the convoy in second position, flanked by 2 armored transports and a logistics van. The radio crackled. All clear. Proceeding to checkpoint Sierra. They rolled forward. 15 seconds later, the lead vehicle vanished in fire. A thunderous explosion split the air. Metal screamed. Wheels flipped. Shrapnel tore through the second truck like it was paper. Bennett shouted something, but the blast drowned it out. Then came the gunfire. Live rounds from above. Echo scrambled from the wreckage. Training instincts kicked in. But this wasn't a drill. Leclerc yelled into her comm, "Base command, this is Echo. We are under attack. Repeat, we are—" Static. Jammed. The ridge above shimmered with muzzle flashes. Ambush. Real. Planned. Deadly. 2 Polish trainees went down immediately. A third was bleeding out, screaming for his brother. Chaos. Captain Rourke, observing from a mobile ops truck, hit the emergency beacon. No response. The fallback system was dead too. Echo had no comms, no air support. Just fire, screams, and a sudden horrifying clarity. This was an intentional hit. Someone had turned the simulation into a trap. In the middle of it all, Vale moved. She didn't crouch. She didn't duck. She walked slowly across the wreckage as bullets zipped past. She knelt beside the injured Pole, checked his pulse. Dead. Then she whispered, loud enough for Echo to hear, "Get down. Cover your eyes. Now." Leclerc blinked. "What?" But Vale was already throwing something into the air. A small sphere. It hissed once, then detonated in a burst of magnesium-white light. Flash blind, military grade, illegal in training, and very, very familiar to Black Ops units. When Echo looked up again, the shooters were gone. Everyone. Some unconscious, some clearly disabled. One was crying, clutching a shattered elbow. They didn't even hear her move. Didn't see what she did. She was already back in the shadows. Captain Rourke, now bleeding from a shard in her shoulder, limped out of the half-burned ops truck. What the hell just happened? Vale looked at her. Finally, she spoke. This wasn't rogue trainees. These weren't NATO actors. They were mercenaries from Erebus Holdings. Rourke froze. That's not possible. We shut them down. Vale tilted her head. No, you shut down what they showed you. Rourke stared. How do you know that? Vale reached into her vest, pulled out a small ID chip, one no one had seen before. She held it up. Black metal, glowing faint blue, stamped not with a name, but a number. GL027, Project Glassline. Rourke went pale. You're not... That's a myth. Vale's eyes narrowed. No, I'm the last one. Silence. The kind of silence that bends reality. Bennett stepped forward. Wait. Project Glassline? I've heard of that. It was the deep recon program, ghost operatives. They were built, not trained. Vale looked him dead in the eyes. We weren't built. We were erased. Back at the base, a secure call was patched through to Brussels. Within hours, black helicopters arrived. Not marked, no flags, no symbols. A man in a dark coat met Rourke and read from a file that didn't exist. GL027 was presumed KIA 5 years ago in a failed Istanbul breach. This was her proving ground. You were never supposed to see her. Rourke crossed her arms. She saved 19 lives. I watched her take out a ridge full of shooters with no backup. We know. The man turned to Vale. You weren't cleared to engage. She didn't blink. They weren't cleared to kill my squad. Back in the barracks, the squad sat stunned. No one spoke. Eventually, Bennett broke the silence. So, you were never one of us. Vale sat at the edge of her bunk. She didn't argue, didn't deny it, but then she looked up, her voice low, measured. I was never allowed to be. A pause. Then she added, but for once, I chose to stay. They understood. This wasn't some super soldier who looked down on them. This was a woman who'd been abandoned by the very system that made her. And yet, she still came back, still saved them, still belonged here more than anyone. From that moment on, they stopped calling her Ghost. They started calling her Sergeant, even if command never made it official. 2 days after the ambush, Vale was gone. No goodbye, no orders, just silence. Her bunk was clean, her gear folded, her dog tags missing. Squad Echo waited for answers, but none came. Captain Rourke was tight-lipped. Even the top brass avoided eye contact when her name was mentioned. Officially, she'd been reassigned to a classified task force. Unofficially, they'd buried her again, just like the first time. Then came the call. A midnight alert. Camp Vireo was being mobilized for a covert international mission. One so sensitive, even NATO command refused to authorize it on paper. All they had was a digital message burned into a secure channel. Operation Bloodhound, Echo Squad only. Bring everything. Location, a shipping port near Novorossiysk, Russia. Intel, black market weapons exchange between Erebus Holdings and an unknown paramilitary group. Payload, dirty bomb components, enough to cripple a city. Time to impact, 6 hours. When Echo Squad landed near the docks, they were met by a ghost. Bale, waiting in the cold. No rank, no uniform, just dark civilian gear and the same unreadable stare. Leclerc froze. We thought you were gone. Vale nodded once. I was. Then turned and walked toward the docks. Now I'm back. Let's move. The plan was madness. 4 squads had already failed to breach the site. 1 drone team had gone dark completely, and the harbor was crawling with guards, ex-special forces types, armed with NATO surplus and zero mercy. But Vale wasn't guessing. She'd been there before. She showed Echo the blueprint, not from intel, but from memory. They always keep the shipment in Dock 9, hidden beneath seafood pallets to fool scanners. Bennett blinked. How do you know that? Vale paused. Because I helped design the system, before they turned it against us. They breached at 0130 hours. No sound, no sirens, just Vale in the lead. cutting through the shadows like a blade through silk. She took out the perimeter silently, then signaled Bennett and Leclerc to flank. They found the bomb. Not a theory, not a threat. A real breathing horror. Timer, 11 minutes. And it was already active. Leclerc panicked. "We don't have the clearance codes." Vale stepped forward, looked at the device, studied it like an old friend. "We don't need them." Her fingers danced across the panel. Not just inputting codes, rewriting the system itself. Lines of code flickered on a hidden screen, encrypted in a language only intelligence operatives would recognize. Bennett stared. "You're a coder?" Vale didn't look up. "I'm whatever they needed me to be." And then the clock froze. 6 seconds left. Disarmed. But someone else was waiting. In the shadows behind Dock 10, a man stepped forward. Dressed in black, grey beard, scar across his left eye. Commander Vex, the ex-Erebus strategist responsible for the Istanbul failure that had gotten Vale killed. He smiled when he saw her. "I told them you'd resurface. Ghosts always do." Vale didn't blink. "You failed Istanbul. I lived it." "You survived because I let you." "No, I survived because I was better than you." He raised a pistol. But before he could fire, Vale stepped forward. No weapon drawn. "You don't want a standoff, Vex. You want to prove you're smarter." She tossed him a small drive. "That has your full network. Every buyer, every safe house. If you shoot me, it gets released." Vex hesitated. "You bluff." "No," she said, stepping even closer. "I just planned better." Behind her, Echo Squad appeared. Weapons up, silent, unshaken. He was surrounded, and he knew it. Back at base, the official report was sanitized. The mission was labeled Joint Success. No mention of Vale, no record of her involvement. Again erased. But this time, Echo Squad refused to stay silent. Bennett submitted an official commendation report with her name on every page. Leclerc contacted a NATO oversight committee. Even Captain Rourke leaked portions of the bodycam footage to a trusted military journalist. Within 48 hours, the story went viral. The woman who wasn't supposed to exist saved everyone. Her photo, previously classified, made front-page news. And the tattoo on her wrist? 3 lines inside a triangle. Now the symbol of unspoken strength. They tried to recall her, tried to hide her again, but it was too late. She had become a symbol, not of glory, but of grit, of surviving betrayal, and still choosing to protect the ones who would have never believed in her. Weeks later, a new training cycle began at Camp Vireo. Fresh faces, new recruits, and standing at the head of the mat was Vale, no longer Ghost, now Instructor Vale. Same voice, same silence. But now, when she walked past, recruits stood straighter, because they knew the quietest blade is also the sharpest, and the woman they once mocked, she was now the standard.